Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Paul Carroll Sport podcast. This is the first podcast of 2025. I'm coming to you on a blustery Monday, Bank Holiday Monday, February the 3rd, 2025. And we've lots to talk about on today's episode. We're going to be looking back on Tipp and Wexford in the National Hurling League, the Tipp footballers, the Harty Cup. We're going to be talking a bit about the level of Tipperary support as well. That's been a talking point with a really good article in the Irish Times that we're going to have a quick flick through and chat about that as well. And yeah, we are a little bit later than probably scheduled in terms of getting the podcast back up and running. I had intended to kind of get it up and running in the last couple of weeks, but I'll kind of go through why why I wasn't able to in just a few moments' time. So that's what's coming up on today's show. If you're new to the podcast, your first time listening, usually kind of a day or the day of or the day after Tipperary senior hurlers play, we go down through a podcast, kind of looking down through the game, talking about the players and just my overall thoughts. I commentate and work for Tipp FM, so I'd be at all of the games and I just kind of give my thoughts, something I'm interested in. And yeah, we got some good listenership last year, so we're hoping to continue. And we hope you enjoy the podcast. Usually once a week, usually on a Sunday evening or a Monday. And yeah, we've continued on from the club season. I haven't done a podcast now since the end of the club season, so it could be a bit rusty, but plenty to go through as always. Coming up usually about an hour. So if you're listening on Spotify, give us a good rating. If you're watching on YouTube as well, like and subscribe to the channel. And you know, it's a kind of once a week kind of thing. So yeah, let's kind of get to it. I need to switch up my scene here so you can see on the screen if you're watching. We have the Tipperary team in front of me. Some things I'll be going through written down here. The Seamus Flanagan incident, I'll be giving my thoughts on that as well. The Tipp footballers had a big win. Tipp Wexford, I have this article brought up as well. Really good article in the Irish Times by Dennis Walsh. Hurling is a local obsession in Tipperary, so where have the supporters gone? We're going to talk a bit about that as well over the course of the podcast. So we'll get going. Also, this year I've decided to, throughout the league, kind of have a prediction for the Tipperary lineup for the start of the championship. So it will change week to week as players' kind of performances go up and down. So you know, it's kind of a rolling team of where I see the Tipp team kind of lining out for the start of the championship. Of course, Tipp at home to Limerick. Is it April 13th, April 14th that weekend? I think no, the following weekend, April 20th, April 19th. Around then is when Tipp get the championship underway, but we're a few months away from that just yet, so we'll be focusing on the league. So, right, let's get going now. First, I suppose, before we start the podcast, I'll just kind of open up about a bit about myself personally. The start of the year probably hasn't gone the way I would have wanted it to, but so yeah, I would have had the podcast going last week or the week before in normal circumstances. I've been off the air in Tipp FM. I've been off kind of sick leave for the last 2 weeks. So basically, what's happened is I've had a loop recorder in my chest for the last couple of years. I had an incident a few years ago where I felt a bit dizzy, done an ECG, and the doctors kind of saw an irregular kind of heartbeat. So loop recorder put in my chest. All that is a little tiny thing that records my heartbeat, sends it back to the hospital, and they record the data and do what they like with it. So I'll just put myself back onto the camera only mode, but. Yeah, so I've had that in my chest the last couple of years. Hasn't made a difference to my life at all. Just it's something there in the background ticking away, and the doctors kind of look after the rest. But last year I was at a Burgess junior hurling game. I couldn't play last year because I had back surgery, so it's been a wild time. But had on the sideline just watching the match, watching the lads play, and I felt dizzy for about 10 seconds, almost to the point of, geez, am I going to faint here? And then it came and went, and I forgot about it, and I never thought of it. Fast forward maybe a week, and I get a call from the doctors. They had reviewed what had gone on, and my heart rate had actually gone up to 250 beats a minute for about 20 seconds. So that's not good. Your usual heart rate's around 60 beats a minute, kind of thing. So this was a worry. So that was last July. Doctors brought me in. We done every kind of heart test you can imagine, and they couldn't find anything. So they'd done all the tests they could. They couldn't find a condition that, right, this is what's wrong. So basically follow that on till the start of this month, and I was called in by my cardiologist inside in Limerick, and I thought it was just going to be a normal routine meeting with him where he'd say, look, we're going to do this test, I think it might be this, whatever. So I sat down with him, and yeah, long story short, he said you have to get a pacemaker and defibrillator. It's something called an ICD, so an implantable cardiac device, I think is what it stands for. put into my chest. So basically that's what I've had done a few weeks ago. 2 weeks today as we're recording, is when I had that surgery. So it's a pacemaker and a defibrillator, so if my heart goes too low, the pacemaker knocks it up. If it goes too high, it shocks it back into a normal rhythm. So yeah, that's basically it. So I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky to have this, because it's something that if I ever need it, it will save my life. We're hoping I will never need it, but having that safety net there is a good thing. So why I'm kind of telling a load of random people on the internet this is because I just want to say that I'm very lucky that this was found. How many people just drop dead from a heart attack, and there could be some underlying condition that could have stopped it. So even if you've never felt dizzy or anything like that, next time you're in with the GP, just ask them for a quick ECG. All it is they put stickers on you, attach wires to the stickers, and that records your heartbeat. And that's, the lines going up with a heartbeat. That's an ECG, and skilled doctors and cardiologists are able to tell if there's any problem with the way those lines are going, and they'll sort you out. So yeah, I have been sorted out, thankfully. So that's where I've been the last kind of couple of weeks. So yeah, just if you can get an ECG, it could be the best thing you ever do. So and it's a low cost, no pain kind of thing as well from a GP. So that's where I've been. I'm 27 years old. It's very young to be getting a pacemaker. You would have heard soccer players. Christian Eriksen has one. Daley Blind, who used to play at Man United. Tom Lockyer, that player from, was he with Luton there, was the same. So look, I'm not alone in terms of people who have pacemakers. I'm sure everyone listening probably knows someone who has a pacemaker, maybe not a 27-year-old, but look, that's just the way the ball has fallen for me. So unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to play a hurling. Like it's right in here. If you're looking on screen, it's a kind of like a battery pack under my skin, so wired into my heart. So I wouldn't fancy standing under a high ball and someone running into me full force, and the doctor said as much as well. So I might have to just focus on the golf game from now on, but that's the way it is. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that, because I just wanted, I suppose, be a bit open with everyone listening to this podcast. It's more a podcast about Tipp hurling and all that, but it is the P. Carroll Sport podcast. So yeah, if anyone listening to this just got an ICG done, and that, or ECG, sorry, done, that'll be worth this spiel I've gone on here. So that's kind of the update with myself. If you see the screening that the Dylan Quirk Foundation is doing, that's what they'd be doing. They'd be doing an ECG test, I would presume, as a starting point. So that just kind of compounds the great work they've been doing in the last couple of years. So long may that continue. So that's a quick update on myself. So I'm hoping to get back commentating next weekend, Tipp and Limerick. So yeah, we'll get back into it. The defibrillator anyway hasn't been needed the last kind of few weeks watching Man United matches and things like that. My heart rate has definitely been up for some of those. So it's just going to have to be an adjustment of changing a few things around in my life. No more kind of contact sport and things like that. So, but look, we'll get over that in time. I'm well aware of how lucky I am. It's just maybe taking a couple of weeks to kind of get my head around everything and that sort of thing. So this has been maybe more therapeutic for me to just empty my mind to a camera sitting down in my room. But let's get on to what you've tuned into this podcast for. So let's move on to the world of Tipperary GAA. We'll head it back to here. So yesterday I did go down to Semple Stadium, not working, just kind of there as a supporter, and I haven't actually been to a Tipp match as a supporter in a very long time. So not I've obviously been there as a supporter, but usually I'm working at the game. So this was something different, and the seats in Semple Stadium are not comfortable for myself. If you, I don't think they're comfortable for anyone, but I'm on the tall side. I'm 6'6", so bet into those seats. Wasn't the most comfiest, but it was a lovely day down in Semple Stadium, and 122 to 19 points full-time score. Really wet conditions down in Semple Stadium, I must say. The rain on Saturday night really didn't help, so the ground was really, really soft, particularly on the old stand side, so out the tunnel and to the left, was really, really wet there and sticky, so that was a real difficult part of the field. I had a feeling looking at Seamus Kennedy that, he's coming back from a knee injury. It's an injury I've had myself, and it's an injury that plays on your mind mentally for a while. And I can't imagine he was too happy being on that wing in that sticky ground. But He's had a brilliant recovery so far, so long may that continue. Great to see him back. Seamus Kennedy as well. So he was one change to the team, but in general, an overall kind of view of the match, Tipp were comfortable throughout. The game never really got out of third gear. I thought it was kind of challenge match-esque. There was a lack of intensity to the game in general, and the conditions played its role in that as well, in terms of just how soft the ground was, and it was just hard to get clean hurling in. But look, Tipp had a job to do. They got the job done, and we're happy with that. It's 2 wins from 2, but this isn't a game that's going to live long in the memory. In terms of good performances, I'll run down through the team and give my thoughts on kind of each player's performance. But as an overall, I thought Owen Connolly was really, really good again. Michael Breen had a fine game back there, and Robert Doyle was really impressive. Not sure the Wexford man he was marking, but every ball that came into him, Robert Doyle was like stuck to him, flicking the ball away, winning it back, coming out with it. Really positive first start for Robert Doyle there in cornerback. Out the field then, Willie Connors has continued his really good start to this season. I thought Craig Morgan was involved in so much. A lot didn't go his way. He had a goal chance that he was kind of hooked, hit a few wides, but he did win a penalty and he was up and down the field the whole time. So it was a difficult day for hurling, but I thought Craig Morgan was involved in a lot, and you could see kind of his willingness throughout the game. So that's kind of the overall view of the game. Darren McCarthy scored the penalty. I think he got 1-6. He got a point from play, which was a really, really good score right underneath the old stand on the 21-yard line. Coming out the field on his right-hand side, kind of surveying his options, and then just turns on his left and puts it straight over the bar from a really difficult angle. So he had a really, I was going to say he had a really fine game. He was kind of, there wasn't an awful lot of ball going into the full forward line, if I'm being honest. So the likes of himself, Andrew Ormond and Jason Ford at times were probably starved for ball coming in. The first ball of the game that came into Darren McCarthy, he won a free and put it over the bar. So that was a real positive start. But we didn't see him a lot from open play. But he's had a really good start to life in the Tipp senior team. We have to remember he's only 19 years of age. I think a lot of it is expected from him, but he's doing really well so far considering his age. He's nailing the frees. He scored 2 penalties in 2 games, and that penalty, as I said, won by Craig Morgan in the second half. When that went in, I think it was 117-12 or something like that, and it was kind of Tipper kind of cruising from then and got some scores late on. Wexford kind of got a bit of a purple patch late on as well, but the game was kind of gone beyond them at that stage. So usually in these podcasts, I'm commentating on the game, so I'll have notes written down and I can go through the play-by-play of the match because I'll remember it more clearly. But when you're spectating, watching a game, it's probably less, I don't know, the story of the game is less in my head, but it was a kind of a slow game. Tipp got on top for the start. I think there were 7 points to 2 or something like that up, and then Wexford kind of got it back to a 2-point game, but I don't think they were ever closer than 2 points throughout the game. So we'll start with Rhys Shelley in goals. He'd no real shots to stop, but his puck outs, he mixes the really good with the poor. So a few puck outs he hit straight to Wexford players, but there's a few puck outs then where, like, he pinged Willie Connors a couple of times for scores. He does this really good long puck out to the wing forward where it kind of goes over their head and they're able to run in behind it. It happens kind of a couple of times a game, but he's able to pick it out brilliantly. And there was one time in the second half where I think Owen Connolly might have won a free just inside his own 14-yard line, and Rhys Shelley just came out, just on the run, rose it and flicked it into the middle of the field, straight into, it could have been Willie Connors' hand again, I'm not too sure, but it was just a perfect pass. Like, his ability striking-wise is really, really good. So I know he probably would have been disappointed with the goals he conceded against Galway, but I think the factors in that game, it was an awful day down in Galway under lights, that kind of thing in the second half. So you'd forgive him for some of those in January, when they happen. So I think the game time will do him the world of good as well as the season goes on. But full back line, as I mentioned, Robert Doyle, Owen Connolly, Michael Breen. Owen Connolly and Michael Breen, I said the game lacked intensity, but not when these lads were on the ball. There was a couple of times, one time in the first half, Owen Connolly got the ball at the Clonmel end side of the field, old stand side as well. 4 lads on him, bust through, hand passed it to Michael Breen. Michael Breen runs over a Wexford fella, knocks him to the ground, pops the hand pass back to Owen Connolly, and he drives it over the bar from like his own 65. He got 2 or 3 points. A really, really good performance from him. He's looking so confident. I think that year with Cashel has done him the world of good in terms of confidence. He looks like a leader out in the field now. And he's in great nick. He's bursting out with ball, really good striking. And hopefully this form continues, because he's been a really good player for Cashel and Tipp underage teams. And we've seen him utilised for Tipperary in recent years, senior, particularly against Clare last year, where he was kind of sprung in when Michael Breen actually got injured in the warm-up. He had a fine game that day. And I could see him nailing that number 3 position come championship. Michael Breen, as I mentioned, was busting out with ball galore. And that was probably the best line for Tipperary yesterday, was that full back line. Robert Doyle, as I mentioned, really good as well. Seamus Kennedy and Gavin O'Halloran. It was kind of a game and not a lot of ball went to the wings, and there was a lot of ruck balls forming, so it was hard to probably stand out in those wing back roles. Gavin O'Halloran got a really nice long range score and looked relatively comfortable out there. He was making his first start as well. And Seamus Kennedy could have got a score. I don't think he did. Let's see, I have the scores here. I have a Tipp Live article up on the screen here. Where are we? The scores are down here. Hopefully there's no... These pop-up ads on Tipperary Live can be a bit dodgy at times, so hopefully there's nothing naked ladies on the screen or anything, but I think we're okay. So where are the scores? Yeah, I don't think did Seamus Kennedy get one. No, he definitely hit one wide, but he didn't get on the score sheet. But it's really good to see him kind of working his way back in, and you can still see, well, maybe this is just me thinking of from my perspective, when I was coming back from the same knee injury, you're kind of a little bit hesitant at times, but all these game times will progress him forward, and he's getting through games, and he'll be thinking, right, I've got through a full game, or I've got through that, and I'm fine, I'm feeling good, and suddenly he won't be thinking. He could be at that stage already of not thinking about his knee or anything like that, but it's great to see him kind of progressing. Brian McGrath, I thought he read the game very well in the first half. He was sweeping onto a lot of ball, and it's going to be interesting to see how he goes this year. Really smart player, reads the game so well, and is in good nick at the minute as well. So he had a fine performance. It was just if you weren't at the game, it's kind of hard to explain. It was very kind of low intensity, I felt, so hard to take too much from it. Craig Morgan, as I mentioned, up and down the field the whole time. Some things didn't fall his way, but you could see him trying and making runs, and he made a brilliant run at one stage, actually, right through the middle of the field, and the ball was being passed around the 65, and if someone spotted him, it was like a true ball in soccer. He was in over the top, but he wasn't spotted. But he made that run again, won the penalty. So I think Liam Cowell will be really happy with how Craig is playing. I think out the field suits him a lot more than stuck in the corner, on someone's shoulder, marking someone. He's more of a free player, free in terms of being out in the middle of the field, where he doesn't just have a designated man that he has to stick to, because he is a really good hurler. So nice to see him developing as well. Willie Connors, as we mentioned, really good start to the year, and he's continued that. 3 scores, one long range one in the first half, another where it was out on the sideline over the bar. He's playing really, really well, looks really confident out there. Number 10, Josh Keller, made his debut. He was taken off at half time. He wasn't in the game at all, which is disappointing. He's a young player making his debut. You'd like to see him maybe get involved a little bit more. But you can see from his builds that he's probably a player that Liam Cowell would like to work on for a couple of years. I know he's been involved for the last couple of years, but he looks a bit like Gerald O'Connor a few years ago. Gerald O'Connor, I feel, has put on a really nice bit of size, but he's a tall player, kind of long stride on him, Josh Keller, but didn't really get in the game at all, which is disappointing, because you need all these kind of young players coming through. So hopefully he might get another chance, and will kind of get on a bit more ball in that next chance. Jake Morris up next, captain the team, was heavily involved throughout, showed for the ball really well, had a goal chance, had another chance where he kind of gave Andy Ormond a poor hand pass, but he was always willing, always running with the ball, and he's in good form, and you can see him warming up into the year as well. Alan Tynan as well, probably like to have seen a little bit more of Alan Tynan throughout the game, but it's early in the season yet. Andy Ormond was so good against Galway. Again, as I mentioned, that full forward line didn't really get much service, but he's very willing, and he's kind of involved in the action a lot. Jason Ford, our first look at Jason Ford, again, not on an awful lot of ball, got a brilliant score with just a quick flick up and kind of volley over the bar from close range in that first half, I think it was. But yeah, probably less involved in the game as you would have liked, but it's early in the season yet, and what you can tell from actually being there is Jason Ford looks in really good nick. Like he's probably leaned down a bit. I feel he was gone, like he was never heavy or anything like that, but really strong and kind of bulky muscle wise, and probably maybe was slowing him down a little bit. You can see he's maybe leaned up a small bit, and he looks in really, really good shape out there. So that bodes well for Tipperary. A really good Jason Ford is literally one of the best kind of strikers in that in the country on his day. So a good Jason Ford is good for Tipperary. So hopefully, another few starts for him, and we can see him back to his best. Darren McCarthy, then, as we mentioned, 1-7, 6 points from frees and that penalty as well, and that brilliant score from play. So that's the starting lineup in terms of subs that come on. Conor Bowe come on, didn't really get on to much ball. He was literally kind of edge of the square when he came on, and no real ball went in. So we didn't see an awful lot of Conor Bowe. We saw Michael Corcoran come onto the field. I was delighted to see his performance. He came onto the field, won the first ball that came out to him, won a free for the second ball that came out to him, and like the next ball that came in kind of flicked it away from his man. So it was a real nice cameo for him, because he would have had a start against Galway the week before, and it kind of didn't go his way, and he was substituted in that game. So for a young player, made his debut last week, and here he is kind of impressing off the bench this week. That will do him the world of good, and you could see him kind of fist bumping to himself when he won that free and things like that. So that was brilliant to see. We didn't see Kieran Cummins or Ray McCormick. John McGrath come on and got a point. We didn't see David Nolan. Oisin O'Donoghue come on and got a point within 30 seconds. So I was trying to think, and if you're listening, maybe comment or send a tweet, P. Carroll Sport on Twitter. I was trying to think, I think Oisin O'Donoghue's only 18. When is the last 18-year-old to play for the Tipp Senior Hurlers? Like, I'm not sure what age Jake Morris was when he made his debut, but other than that, are you going back as far as someone like Noel McGrath? It's something I'll probably have to look into, but Oisin O'Donoghue has been brilliant throughout the last kind of 12, 18 months for school, for club, and now for county. So it's come a year or two earlier than anyone might have expected, but it's really good to see, because he is brilliant, Oisin O'Donoghue. So brilliant to see him in at a young age and getting that start. And Billy Seymour, we didn't see him feature. We didn't see Dara Stakelman. Johnny Ryan come on and got a score. He came on, Johnny Ryan is one of those kind of players that I'd say would be willing to play anywhere. We've seen him at cornerback, we've seen him midfield. He actually came on at wing forward. I think he came on for Alan Tynan and scored a point as well. So all in all, good outing for Tipperary. They get the win. It's on to Limerick next Sunday at 3:45 inside in the Gaelic grounds. That's going to be a huge test, and it's going to be a kind of an indication of where Tipperary are. When you're thinking about someone like Craig Morgan in midfield and how good he's doing, what's he going to be like against a William O'Donoghue in midfield? That's kind of how we have to think now. I think William O'Donoghue might have had a hamstring injury against Cork, so we mightn't see him. But those are the levels I suppose Tipp have to get to. So those are the comparisons you're going to have to make. And how is this Tipp midfield going to do against Darragh Fitzgibbon or these type of players? So but against Wexford, Tipp went well. They were never in doubt. Wexford probably got a few scores at the end to put a glass on the scoreboard, but it was a comprehensive win for Tipperary. So that is the Tipp Senior Hurlers. It kind of rounded off what was a really good weekend for Tipperary. We will stick with hurling just for a moment. The Harty Cup final, to Thurles CBS 113 to St. Flanagan's at 13 points. Brilliant win, as I have the match report from the Munster GA website on the screen here, written by, I believe, Stephen Barry in the Irish Examiner. Well, it is for GA.ie here, but yeah, 113 to 13 points. Delighted for Thurles CBS, because they had been in finals 2 years ago against Cashel, were beaten by a point. I think it was only a point they lost to Ard Scorish in the semi-final last year, and they got over the line of really difficult conditions down in Mallow. And when people might think of this Thurles CBS team, they've so much good hurlers that it would be easy to think, oh, it's a dirty wet day down in Mallow, they mightn't have it. But they've got so many good hurlers. But as good as the hurlers they have, I think it was probably the work rate of all those good hurlers that actually won them this game, like particularly in that second half. And fair play to the management team, Niall Cowell there and Stephen Maher from Thurles and everyone else involved, and fair play to the players. The work rate they had in that second half, the forwards just overturning ball, it was a really, really good performance. I think David Costigan got man of the match. Jack Hayes was the goal scorer, so two Mike Harkey lads doing well there. I'm trying to do they have the team sheets up here on this? I don't think they do. They do. Here we go. So, just running down through the team and the scores. So, Thurles CBS, Cormac Fitzpatrick, 7 points, all from place ball, 6 frees of 65. He's from Drum, really good player. Jack Hayes, as we mentioned, delighted for him. He was actually the player that got his teeth knocked out in the county championship last year. So, he was going from what, fifth year to sixth year when that happened, playing against Mullinahone, I think that was that day. So it's great to see him getting a moment like that, scoring a goal in a Harty Cup final. And these players will never forget that. Like, they'll always be kind of bonded by this. But Killian Cantwell's point at the end was kind of the rubber stamp on the victory. Kieran Rossiter, just looking at the team sheet here, Kieran Rossiter is another player I really like. He's so quick in midfield. Ewan Murray, Robbie Ryan there, the captain, got a point. Killian Minogue got a couple of points there as well. So who was David Coskin, Ewan Murray, Robbie Ryan, all with points as well as that Killian Cantwell long range effort. So brilliant win for Thurles CBS, and it's 3 in a row for Tipperary. Cashel in 2023, Nina CBS last year, and Thurles CBS this year. So look, there's good work going on underage in Tipperary. I think we're all aware of that, but it's great to see. And let's not forget Clonmel as well. It's won the Harty B final. They bet Scariff Community College, so high school Clonmel 2-19 to 2-7, I think the score was. So really convincing win, and I think Scariff might have got kind of 2 late goals kind of thing. So that's all 4 divisions. If you look at Cashel a couple of years ago in the west, Thurles in the mid, Nina in the north, and Clonmel in the south. That's brilliant for Tipperary hurling. So well done to all the coaches involved at all levels, because these players are in with their club teams, they're in with county underage teams as well. So long may this continue and keep this conveyor belt of talent coming through in Tipperary. So fair play to Thurles CBS, delighted for them, and fair play to High School Clonmel as well. And Michael Breen involved with them as well, teaching down there. So a really good weekend for him. Before we move on from hurling, other things to talk about. I mentioned this article, hurling is a local obsession in Tipperary, so where have the supporters gone? I really would encourage you to go read this on the Irish Times. It's a well kind of sourced piece. There's interviews with Tommy Dunn and past players for Tipperary, and just their thoughts on where the county's at and the level of support and things like that. So it's a really good piece, and it probably sparked a bit of debate online during the week about where is the Tipperary support. Like, if you think back to the Cork game last year and how kind of outnumbered we were. Now, there was probably factors to that. Tipper going kind of bad at the minute at the senior level, but what do you think, in terms of the support for Tipperary? Because we all love hurling here in Tip. But the support has been poor in recent years for the county team. But I think good performances underage will help that, and the performances we've seen so far in the league have been encouraging. It's a young team coming through, and it's probably an easy team to get in behind, because there's a lot of young players that have given Tipperary a lot at the underage grade that you'd like to see kind of continue to develop and bring the good days back at the senior grade as well. So, and Liam Cowell probably has called out that as well. It's easy to go support the team up in Croke Park for All-Ireland semi-finals and finals in the last decade or so, but I suppose now is when the team probably needs it the most. And I mentioned on Twitter that the support does make a difference. That game down in Walsh Park last year, the Tipp crowd that were there were really vocal, really behind the team, and I think they played their part in that kind of injury time comeback, the Shawnee Kennelly goal and the free by Grode O'Connor to level it. So it's just something I wanted to bring up, because I don't know if anyone watched Allianz League Sunday last night in RT, but the commentator just kind of throwaway comment at the start said, "Oh, really poor crowd here," or something like that. And like, I was in Thurles yesterday, there was over 5,000 people there. I think that's a pretty solid crowd. And now it feels probably small in Semple Stadium. If that game was on in Nina, it'd be a bumper crowd, or if that game was on in Templemore or wherever. So that's probably worth a debate as well. Would you play some of those Tip League games maybe out of Semple Stadium, where 5,000 would be a real intense atmosphere, and it would maybe be good for the players the younger players to play in that kind of atmosphere as well, rather than 5,000 in Semple Stadium doesn't feel as intimidating, I suppose. But that's maybe something that I'd imagine the players prefer playing in Semple Stadium and that kind of thing. But So yeah, that. There was 5,100. So I didn't think that was a small crowd, as the commentator mentioned. But considering you'd have to imagine 90% were from Tipperary. So you're talking just short of 5,000 Tip fans at the game. If Tip were playing maybe a Clare or Limerick or Cork, it'd probably be double that. So you're looking at kind of close to 10,000 at a league game. So I thought it was a pretty good crowd there. So I don't think the support has gone anywhere. There's a lot of factors in this. If you were to go to every Tip game, and the fact that under 16s have to buy a ticket and all this sort of thing, like it was 15 quid for that match as well yesterday. I know Tip GA don't set those prices, but there's a lot of games in the year, and people don't have as much discretionary income as probably they'd like. So that's a factor too. But that's a factor for all counties. But it is probably easier to be supporting a Limerick in the last 5 years than it has been a Tipperary. That's for sure. So hopefully the support for Tipperary grows throughout the year. But yeah, good to see a good crowd in Semple Stadium yesterday, and I'm sure. And I hope a good Tip crowd make the trip into Limerick next Sunday as well. So, speaking of Limerick, one of the big incidents this weekend was the Limerick Cork game, and it was a draw, and it was definitely played for a draw there at the end. I thought like I don't want this to be a podcast where I just talk shite about referees or whatever. I'm not a referee, so I can't imagine how difficult it is and the pace of the play in the inter-county game trying to officiate that. But I thought there was a lot of freeze that on replay you're like, what was that for on both sides? I'm a completely neutral here. I don't think the ref favoured anyone either way, but I thought that free at the end was probably a soft one for Cork to level the game. But at the end of the day, it was a 116 apiece. But the main talking point coming out of the game is an off the ball incident with Seamus Flanagan. It was the type of game where there's a lot of these teams have played each other a lot in the last few years. There's been a lot of off the ball stuff, no doubt, but this is just something I wanted to bring up because it's Seamus, if you're just listening, it's Seamus Flanagan hitting Niall O'Leary, the Cork cornerback, in the balls. So if he poleaxed him with a butted a hurley under the chin, it wouldn't be as bad. If he pulled off his helmet and punched him in the jaw, it wouldn't be as bad, I think, as this. It's just such a, and I'll first of all say that Seamus Flanagan, I've seen him on interviews and all that, and I think he's kind of someone that pops up on TikTok a lot if you're someone who scrolls through TikTok, and seems like sound fella. This isn't anything against the person Seamus Flanagan, but this was just something you really don't want to see on a hurling pitch, and it's just watching it back here. Of course it buffers now, but there it is playing there now. It's just a nasty one because it doesn't take much to do significant damage to a fella when you hit him there. I've been hit there myself in matches and been in pain for weeks after. So it's just something you'd hate to see a player do. Stamp on his foot, elbow him into the stomach, dig the hurley into his chin, or just don't do that. Don't do that. So it's just that's how I see it anyway. If he hit him anywhere else, it wouldn't be as bad. But just to do that, it's a cowardly act. And I don't know in terms of this tweet. Whoever tweeted this says Seamus Flanagan, whatever. Of course, the referee and his officials missed it. I think at this time the referee was dealing with something at the far end of the field, and in fairness to umpires, their angle of that isn't going to be as crystal clear as the angle we have on this video. If they're right behind it, you're not going to be actually able to see a hurley coming forward. If Niall O'Leary is blocking the view, you could see maybe a motion, but if you can't see exactly what happened, if you're not 100% sure as an umpire, you can't really send someone off. So I'd have a bit of sympathy there for the officials. I wouldn't be blaming them. In terms of retrospective action from the GAA, I'm nearly sure there's rules that, if something like this was to be caught on camera, it would have to be caught on like a GAA camera used for the game, rather than a camera that someone in the stands has used to just record an incident. So it'll be interesting to see, is there any kind of punishment for Seamus Flanagan? But it's just a nasty kind of moment. I'm sure he regrets it, but I'm sure Niall O'Leary regrets the incident even more. He's come off the worst end of it. It's just a nasty little dig. So, there's playing on the edge and all that on the ball, but something like that is just not what you want to see. So that's something worth mentioning as well. So we'll getting towards the end of the podcast now. I wanted to mention the Tipp footballers. 313 to 118 win over Longford. What a brilliant couple of weeks for Philly Ryan. New management, a lot of new players in the team. They got a brilliant draw late on away in Carlow last weekend, and now they've got a home win down in Clonmel against Longford, kind of losing throughout the game, came back a number of times, and then Mark Russell kicks a 2-pointer to win it. If you follow Tipp football at all, it's a Mark Russell point. If you know what a Mark Russell point is, you know what it is. It's off the right, from distance, right boot, and over the bar late on. And there was a brilliant atmosphere in Clonmel for the game. There was tip, tip, tip chants at a Tipp football match. And speaking to people very close to Tipp football, they said they haven't heard those chants since 2016, since Tipp beat Galway in the All-Ireland quarter-final. So tip, tip, tip chants back in a Tipp football match. And that's the beauty of playing the game in Clonmel. I've been at countless Tipperary football matches in Semple Stadium the last number of years, where a couple of hundred at it. It's travelling a distance for the stronghold of Tipperary football in South Tipperary. And even if you had 1,000, 2,000 in Semple Stadium, it doesn't sound like it. But if you have the big crowd that was down in Clonmel, it's an asset to Tipperary. Suddenly they're not in a empty Semple Stadium where the teams coming down from Longford or wherever are saying, oh geez, look, we get to play in Semple Stadium, and it kind of gives them a boost. Instead, it's in Clonmel, it's in a cauldron of Tipp football supporters, and it gives the Tipp team an impetus and a bit of energy out on the field, that they're really well supported. So really great to see. Delighted for Philly Ryan, a Clonmel Commercials clubman himself. And the goals for Tipp: Sean O'Connor 1-4, Luke Boland got a goal kind of soccer style, Michael Freeney of Kilsheelan got a goal as well, another young player. And then the points: 1-4 for Sean O'Connor, Mark Russell with two 2-pointers, Stephen O'Brien got a 45, Keane Smith came on and scored a free, Conor Fahey of Upperchurch got a 2-pointer as well. So those were the scores for Tipperary. This is an article from the Nina Guardian website. So just brilliant for Tipperary. They go on to play Limerick in 2 weeks' time, and then they've the home game with London that is on in the February 22nd. It's a double header, so Tipp will play London in the football, and then they'll play Cork in the hurling that evening. So if you're a Tipp supporter, mark that one in your notebooks. I think is it February 22nd? It's that Saturday anyway, around the first kind of 21st, 22nd of February. So it'll be good if you're going to that hurling game, get in early and see the footballers as well. Hopefully if they can beat Limerick, they'll be, I think I have the table opened here. Tipp are currently third, so they've played 2, won 1 and drawn 1. Wexford top, Carlow second. So if Tipp could beat Limerick have won, they've played 2, drawn 1 and lost 1, so that's who Tipp have next. They have a weekend off next weekend. It'll be the following weekend they play Limerick in a Limerick venue. So long may this continue for Tipp. So that's a brilliant result for them, and we wish them all the very best luck going forward as well. So that's pretty much where we are for this week's podcast. What are we? We're 38 minutes in. So we will go quickly back to the football. I just have some notes written down, to the hurling. So I mentioned that to start. I probably should have done this earlier, but I'm a bit rusty. But I said I was going to do a rolling kind of Tipperary team. I've thrown this together in 30 seconds, so don't put too much thought into it. So this is maybe how I see the Tipp championship team lining out come the first championship game. At present, this will change a number of times throughout the league, with players picking up form, players coming in and doing really well. So this is kind of how I see it at the minute. So this is how I've put it. This will change, as I mentioned. We could see loads of players. I've gone Rhys Shelley at the minute. I've gone with that full back line from yesterday. Now look, this is where we are at the minute. So it'd be Rhys Shelley, Robert Doyle, Owen Connolly and Michael Breen. A half back line of Brian O'Mara, Ronan Maher, and I've put Sam O'Farrell in. I thought he's been really impressive in the challenge games and against Galway last week. I'd love to see him play maybe against Limerick, just to see where he's at, if he's on a Gerard Hegarty or something like that, how would he do against him? That's a huge step up for him. I wouldn't be expecting him to mark Gerard Hegarty out of it. For God's sake, he's only 19, he's still under 20, but just to kind of maybe test him, even if he played 20 minutes, just to kind of see that level. Midfield, Willie Connors and Craig Morgan. You could see a Noel McGrath come in at midfield. It'd be interesting to see when he makes his first appearance. But that's kind of how I have it at the minute. Then Gerard O'Connor, Jake Morris, Alan Tynan. Remember, Conor Stakelum is someone that has to come back into the frame as well, injured at the minute. But you'd imagine Gerard O'Connor, Jake Morris and Alan Tynan will be starting. Then I've actually found it really hard, as you can see. This might be a little bit of a cop-out, but the full forward line, I'd imagine Darren McCarthy's going to start, so I have him. And then it's a bit of a toss-up. You know, there's probably 5 or 6 players gunning for those 2 full forward line spots. Connor Bowe, Jason Ford, Dylan Walsh, Sean Kennelly, we haven't seen him yet, and Andrew Ormond. Can't stop hiccuping now, but I thought Andrew Ormond has had a really, really good start to the year. That Galway game was the best I've seen him hurl for Tipperary, and long may that continues, because he's got a lot to offer. Dylan Walsh, how good was he in his debut? How confident he looked, how direct he was against Galway, looking for goals and things like that. So he's been really good. And Shawnee Kennelly, we haven't seen him yet. So this will scramble around, players will switch positions, other players will come in. That's how I have it now. Let me know what you think in terms of maybe other players that should be in, that you think will be in. So look, this will change throughout the year, no doubt, but that's how I have it now. So that's pretty much all we have for this week's show. A very different start. I probably, I felt I felt I just wanted to share what had gone on with me in the last few weeks, just to kind of, I don't know, I just felt it was the right thing to do. If someone out there decides, you know what, I'm going to throw a few quid towards the Dylan Cork Foundation, or I'm going to go get myself checked, or, just do it. Just do it. It's a painless 2-minute job, and it could be 2 minutes that's it. You never have to worry, or it could be something that will lead to something like what's happened with me, and that's a great thing too, because you'll be safe in the long run. But that's where we are for this week's edition of the podcast. If you're tuning in, give us a like and subscribe on YouTube, good rating on Spotify if you can, and Twitter and Instagram. Twitter probably the best place to find me, at P Carroll Sport. Give us a retweet and like there if you can. So that's it for this week's podcast, and hopefully we'll be back next weekend. I'll probably do a podcast maybe straight after the game in the Gaelic grounds. So until next week, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time. Good luck.